Did I? Gonna record this session so that we can share it with other people in the network afterwards. And yeah, we don't have to go on this too long. I have given folks the ability to rename themselves. So if you'd like to add Duluth or Thunder Bay or Sault Ste. Marie or Houghton or a letter to represent that in front of your name, that's awesome. We can get a sense of where people are joining from. If you'd like to do that, you can rename with those 3 dots in the upper right corner and then click on rename. Yeah, and we sometimes do introductions, but perhaps maybe we'll let Mindy and Summer introduce themselves and share a bit, and then as we discuss, we can do introductions then. And I think you all know me. I'm Rachel. I'm network coordinator here for the Living Labs Network. And how about Mindy? You introduce yourself first, and then Summer, and then go from there. And
sure. Hi, everybody. I'm Mindy Granley, Sustainability Officer for the City of Duluth.
And I am Summer Stevenson, and I'm the Acting Sustainability Coordinator for the City of Thunder Bay.
Awesome. Thanks, ladies. So today we're trying something new with a paired mini meetup where we've invited both folks to share a little bit about what they do and the work that they're working on, and then hoping that we can then have some discussion afterwards on those. So go ahead and be thinking of your questions. You can add them to the chat as we go. But yeah, opening it up for discussion after we hear. So yeah, we didn't really plan which one of you might go first. So let's see, Summer, do you want to go first, and then Mindy after that? Is that okay?
Sure.
Okay.
Awesome. So as I mentioned, I am the Acting Sustainability Coordinator for the City of Thunder Bay with EarthCare Thunder Bay. And EarthCare is a partnership between the city and the community to work on issues of community sustainability, climate adaptation, and greenhouse gas reduction. So it's a pretty pretty broad kind of topics that EarthCare covers. And one of the really cool things about EarthCare is that we really are powered by our working groups. And so we have officially 11 working groups that help us carry out the work that's in our EarthCare sustainability plan. And so this ranges from, energy to climate adaptation to community greening and waste and water. And these working groups are made up of dedicated volunteers, community partners, and businesses. And it's really amazing the work that these groups are able to do. But today, what I'm going to really focus on is one kind of project that I've been working on. Since EarthCare really covers so many different areas, it can be kind of challenging to really focus on, what are some key things that I do in my role. And as an acting sustainability coordinator, I started in January of 2020, and I'm only here until March. So I've really only started to fully learn all of the different elements of my role during this time. And one of the projects that I've been spearheading and leading is the development of our community energy and emissions plan. And so I know I gave a presentation to the Thunder Bay Hub way back in May, which feels like an eternity ago. And so I'll share some slides about the development of this plan and the process that we have been undergoing. Okay, so let me try and find. Okay. Share. Oh, that's not the screen I want to share. Okay, it's confusing with multiple monitors, I sometimes. Screen 2. And so I will preface and say that this is the presentation that I often give to stakeholders who are not involved in a lot of energy work, not involved in sustainability, or maybe haven't really considered what greenhouse gas emissions mean, why we want to mitigate climate change, all of the different elements that go into what a community energy and emissions plan is. So I'll skim over a lot of this and really just provide an overview of the planning process that we have been undertaking, as well as some key data that we have found throughout the process. Back in May, when I gave the initial presentation, for those of you that were there, we really were at the very beginning stages of the development of the plan. And so a lot of things have changed since that time. And so work on this initiative began in 2019, thanks to funding from the Federation of Canadian Municipalities and the Ministry of Energy, Northern Development and Mines. A municipal energy plan is a comprehensive long-term plan to improve energy efficiency, reduce energy consumption and greenhouse gas emissions, foster green energy solutions, and support economic development. So really what this plan is, it's an analysis of energy use across the entire geographic municipality and identifies opportunities for all sectors within the municipality's borders. So this can get kind of tricky because although the plan is led by the City of Thunder Bay, it is a community-wide plan. And it's really a bottom-up approach to policy development because, the municipality, although we are directly in control of only about 3% of Thunder Bay's emissions, we're indirectly in control of about 50%. So there are a lot of things that the municipality can do to really mitigate climate change. And this plan offers an opportunity to start really renewing our focus on the scope and scale of changes that we need to accomplish some ambitious climate targets. And so why now? So we are currently working with a target of 20% below 2009 levels by 2020. So that's the target that's outlined in the EarthCare Sustainability Plan. It was endorsed by Council in 2014. And what we have found is that we definitely need to really think about how emissions are produced within the city and what sectors to really target. Because since setting these targets, the corporation itself, so the municipal corporation, has reduced emissions by 26% below 2009 levels. So the corporation's done a lot of really great work to improve energy efficiency and reduce emissions. But the same can't be said for the community. We've actually seen a 20% increase in emissions since 2009. So it really represents that we need to start thinking about how to best target some of these areas. In addition to this plan will help us leverage funding opportunities. I'm sure we all have been in that position of, trying to find as much funding as possible to get our initiatives off the ground. And this is one requirement in a lot of funding pools for municipalities, and also to respond to the climate emergency. So we are currently living in a climate emergency, and it is important that we all join together to respond to this. And so this is the city's way of responding to the climate emergency. And so our target, because of the climate emergency, was set at net zero emissions by 2050. So this is in line with the federal government, as well as organizations, governments, countries all around the world. And it's really it's really initiated a lot of interesting conversations in Thunder Bay about what net zero means. Is it even realistic? How do we get there? And it's been really exciting to engage in this process, because not a lot of people really believe that this is something that we can achieve. And when we start looking at kind of the things that are needed to meet this target, people's eyes start popping out of their head. And so it's really an opportunity to present this framework so people can start to grapple with what it means to be in a climate emergency and mitigate our emissions. And one of the key things for developing this plan has been stakeholder engagement. So a stakeholder advisory committee was formed at the onset of the plan in 2019 and has been meeting and providing feedback since that time. And our committee is made up of industry leaders, folks on this call right now, are representatives from our EarthCare working groups, as well as representatives from the hospital, the health unit, and community businesses. So a lot of different folks sit around the table when we start talking about this plan, and it can be very interesting to see, how do we negotiate the perspectives of our activists that sit around the table with our industry professionals that may not be the ones that make the huge decisions about their industry's goals. And in addition to this, COVID has really kind of thrown a wrench in how we engage with the public, but we have done 2 online surveys, as well as 2 websites that are maintained with information throughout this process. And so it's really been a back and forth between our stakeholders throughout the development of this plan. Now, every good plan has their baseline, the baseline information. We already know why we're doing this, but if we're talking about net zero, we need to really have a clear understanding about where we are in the city, so that we're not, engaging in work that maybe isn't having the payoff that we think, or spending a lot of money with very little reward in the terms of GHG reductions. And so we conducted a baseline energy study as part of this process. And you can see on your screen here that we can look at energy and emissions by fuel. And so in Thunder Bay, our baseline year was 2016 to align with the last census. And it was all of the data was modeled out to 2050 to look at what our emissions and energy use will look like in a business as usual scenario. So looking at, anticipated electric vehicle uptake, policies that are currently in place, what are some factors that are already in place to start to model what our energy will look like. And you can see that not a lot will change by 2050 if we don't do anything. And you can also see in Thunder Bay, we have a very high portion of natural gas use. And so our natural gas use is a huge portion of the energy that we use, a huge fuel source, as well as gasoline and diesel is up here as well. So we have to target these fossil fuels in order to see the emissions reductions. And this can also be looked at by sector. And so this is the kind of method that we've been using to map out these, what we call the low carbon pathway, or the actions. By sector seems to be the kind of the best practices. So instead of looking at, okay, natural gas use across a whole municipality, we'd have to target industry, commercial institutions, as well as residences. So this way, when we look at sector, it can be broken down and we can, create targeted programs for residents in the community to improve energy efficiency in their homes, or look at how we can support industry and, leveraging funds to engage in pilot projects to reduce their natural gas or other fossil fuel use. And so in Thunder Bay, our transportation sector is our largest source of emissions, followed by industry and then residential. And so we know in Thunder Bay, if we want to see emissions reductions, we really need to target our transportation. The car culture that runs through our city, that's going to be one of the biggest things that we have to really address, as well as our residential energy use. And so what this means is the low carbon pathway is the middle wedge between our business as usual plan, which takes us from 1,228 kilotons of CO2e emissions all the way down to 130 kilotons. So that's what we're working on right now, is how do we bridge this gap? How do we put policies in place, start thinking about policies that other levels of government need to put in place, and advocate on behalf of those so that we can see the nice green line trend instead of the blue trend. Or in our case, we've been seeing kind of an upward slope of emissions. And you can also see here that it's very steep between now and 2030, and that's because every bit of carbon that is released into the atmosphere from now until 2030 will have some significant impacts, as we all are aware. And so from this, there's 6 key actions that have been identified, and we are working on the fine details about how to implement these actions, the timelines, the community partners, potential sources of funding. But we do know that if we want to see about 75% reductions from 2016 levels, these 6 actions need to be implemented. And so we have to retrofit buildings with priority on pre-1980 stock. And that's all buildings, which is going to be a very ambitious task. Fuel switch water and space heating away from fossil fuels. Electrify personal vehicles. Increase efficiency of the industrial sector and fuel switch our combined heat and power systems, generate local renewable energy, and divert our organic waste to an anaerobic digester. So these 6 things will allow us to see the most reductions, but they also are accompanied by land use policy changes, active transportation and transit recommendations, and the like. So it's not just these 6 things in isolation, but really they're a part of kind of a whole host of actions that we can begin to explore. And so that leads us to, that's our next steps. Where are we going? We have 2 months left of our funding. So we have 2 months to really make sure that I would say all of our stakeholders, but I think that's setting my expectations too high, but the majority of our stakeholders are on the same page about the purpose of our plan, what we're realistically, looking at when we talk about, who implements these actions. But that is all to come. And we will be posting the second draft of this plan on our Get Involved platform. So this is the City of Thunder Bay's public engagement kind of platform. And that will be available in the coming weeks. We're hoping to have everything finalized by March 22nd. That includes a council endorsement to really communicate that this plan presents an important pathway for Thunder Bay and start to get some support and generate some excitement in the community. And so that's the major. Stop my sharing now. Yeah. So that's a Coles Notes version on a process that's been a year and a half long, and it's been really exciting to engage in this, especially as a new sustainability coordinator and really a new sustainability professional. So kind of coming in, being handed this project and having to learn as I go, working from home and through COVID. So it's been very exciting, and I'm really glad I got to to share it with everybody today. And if you are interested in kind of any of that baseline information, it's also available online. But I'm way over my time, so I'll pass it back to Rachel to hand it to Mindy.
That's all good. Thanks, Summer. I see some really lovely and important questions in the chat, but I think it'd be great to let Mindy present, and then we can come back to some specific questions for each, and then get that discussion going. So Mindy, if you want to go ahead and share, don't worry everybody, I have seen the questions and we will get to them.
I think I have so many questions. I could use up all my time by just asking Summer some questions. I'm really interested in the survey, so I'll send you a chat about that, Summer. I think you've done an amazing job in a year. Wow. Congratulations.
Thank you.
I'm like amazed. Okay, I'm trying to find my slides and how to, I think I'm stuck on my screen one over here. Okay, share screen. Hopefully you can see a lovely picture of Duluth Lake Rock right now. Is that working? Okay. Okay. Thank you for the invitation today. I know I was kind of more connected with this group in Duluth before I left my position at UMD, where I worked for 12 years to pull together a plan to reduce emissions and involve students in climate action at UMD, and recently took this role late February 2020, working for the city of Duluth in this brand new sustainability position. It is the first sustainability full-time position in the city. Luckily, I'm joining an organization that has had sustainability be part of some of their priorities in the past. But this is a brand new position, totally new, and hopefully I'll share a little bit in the next 15 minutes about how this position is helping increase capacity a bit, connect some departments, and strengthen partnerships, and also leveraging some external resources to work on some strategies for climate change. So thank you for inviting me. I know this isn't a group that I need to probably talk about the definition of sustainability to, but sustainability, I like to use the ecocentric model and think about how, our entire society and economy depends on a healthy environment. And nowhere is that more of a priority but in Duluth. So beyond just the climate change issue, sustainability to me is about people, and this is the sort of poster I tack up on my wall to think about. This is what is humanity's final exam, right? And I'm stealing that from a reporter, Andrew Rebkin, who called it that. And I think it's just such a great way to sum it up. But to solve these issues, we need a radical increase in the flow of ideas and support at all scales and across all sectors. In fact, I was recently at a training last summer or 2 summers ago before I took this job of corporate leaders, sustainability leaders. So people that work in sustainability positions at corporate, and they were asked like, what change in rate of increase of change do we need to see to solve these problems to meet those sustainable development goals? And they overwhelmingly said that either it was double, triple, or quadruple or more a rate of change of implementation to get to that. So I keep that in my mind. We need all sectors to engage. So when I took this job, this is how I see my new job with the city, is that I'm there to first demonstrate that the city is doing our part, that the municipality itself is making responsible decisions around the environment and including equitable solutions in our environmental concerns, that I'm there to measure and communicate, to hold accountable, be transparent about what we're doing. And then I'm also there to initiate change through projects and partnerships and really inspire action, because the city is not going to be able to make this lift all on our own. I really need to sort of reach out to more of the adaptive network around me in order to partner and find solutions to make the city more sustainable. The first year of my job, so I started in late February. Of course, COVID hit in March, and now I've been working from home pretty much since March, which has been difficult, but it also, like summer, it makes you almost less afraid, right? So you you don't have to meet somebody in the hall and have a chat. You can just send them an email, be like, I need this. This is what we're doing. Help me get me this report. So it's made me, I think, a little bolder in what I ask of my colleagues, which is good. But in my first year, I really worked on getting our metrics, our ducks in a row, which are not all in a row yet. I wish I had those beautiful graphs from the CEE plan from Thunder Bay about the business as usual versus the different scenarios and reductions from sectors. That's something I want to get to. But for now, the city's carbon goal through the Climate Mayors Agreement is to reduce emissions 80% by 2050. And as a municipality, we are on track to meet that. Of course, the city's emissions, the municipality emissions, are only about 5% of our larger community. So the real impact of the city being part of Climate Mayors is going to be when we make policies and changes that will do that sort of indirect impact on our community to reduce community emissions. That's a larger goal. But we don't have a formal goal set for the entire community, but we want to work on both. Let's see. Worked on some communications. We created a new website just to serve as sort of a portal for people to find information about sustainability and find connections. I liked thinking of it as a portal idea because one full-time person working for the city can't provide all these things, but we can connect to others that are doing work in around energy or water, waste, stormwater, that kind of thing. So I also started an Instagram. If anyone's interested to follow us on Instagram, feel free to look us up, Duluth Sustain. And that's where my hope is to show some of the stories and the people that are working on things and highlight community partners that are doing a great job, etc. And then I've also focused in this first year on capacity building, really getting resources to help me to help fund projects and get some partnerships going. So I included some preliminary data on the right here. I'm not going to focus too much on it because when I got to the city, I realized the city's greenhouse gas inventory information was being tracked in a way that wasn't really meeting the protocol for local governments. So I have a AmeriCorps energy member who's working to get that entered into ClearPath, which is what most communities are using across the US to track their emissions. So this is preliminary. I don't expect the sectors to change a lot. So in terms of what Summer was saying, what the city needs to work on, it most certainly is our buildings, our transportation, and then our utilities, which includes both water treatment and thermal distribution of energy. So those are going to be the big areas that we need to work on. And buildings includes electricity, just yes. Okay, so I mentioned that I worked on capacity building. These are some of the wonderful young people that I get to work with. I applied for an AmeriCorps Vista member, Lily Strelo, accepted that position, so grateful. Caleb Montgomery took a Green Corps position working on waste reduction. And then I have 4 wonderful interns, 2 of which are sort of phasing out, and then 1 more is coming this summer, that have been working on sort of different projects. Some of them are working on communications, research, outreach, and then some are working on more sectors, like Faith is looking at what are the levers for carbon sequestration for the city in the future. So it's been fun. One thing I enjoyed about my past job was really building relationships and helping folks who are young in their careers help build skills. And there's a great passion for sustainability in our university system, in the community college system, and so just like how do we be part of that? So I was grateful to get a team together. So a few things that are coming soon include, that capacity building, applying for grants. The electric vehicle grant from Minnesota Department of Transportation is something we're going for to get 5 new electric vehicles and an electric mower for our parks department. These will be the first electric vehicles within the city fleet. So we're going to go from 0 to hopefully 5 if we get the grant. And then also we're applying for some charging infrastructure through FPCA, and that will be more for community charging, not fleet charging. And working on sustainable buildings policy, you heard Summer already mention how important buildings are. They're really key in our cold climate, all that natural gas use for heating buildings. We often think about energy as electricity, and it's becoming more and more apparent that that thermal side is going to be a really vital thing, especially as our grid is greening. You can't green natural gas, so what else can we do? Working on some utilities and infrastructure grants. Our water plant that serves 100,000 residents does not have backup power right now. It's been identified in several different reports as a key thing for the city to be more resilient in the future to power outages. So applied for a FEMA grant for that. And then I've been working on some large scale solar siting within the city. What are the city lands that we could use that are appropriate for solar? And then working on how do we do those next steps so we can de-risk these sites for larger developments of solar. Also joined a Solarize campaign with Rocky Mountain Institute and working to investigate some low to middle income financing mechanisms for solar. Also some resiliency work with neighborhoods. So those are some things that are in the hopper, applied for, crossing our fingers to get some more funding to do those. One of the things that I'm really grateful for during this first year was the formation of the City Sustainability Advisory Team. So this is a staff team, leadership from all departments across the city that are going to come together, and I'm asking them to help me find the actionable high-level goals for our city on sustainability, getting to more of that community perspective, not just our internal energy plan. Municipal energy plan is there. All it lacks is funds. That's not the exciting part of this job. The exciting part is really to get to community level action. So through this team, I'm hoping to set some goals, find out some things we can work across departments on, get some alignment internally. And I also am excited to say that we're pursuing some technical assistance. Minnesota Coastal Program staff have a GLISA grant for about $20K. And we're thinking we can rewrite that from a 2-day workshop, which was the original application, to do some more targeted technical assistance to this team, to get those graphs like Summer had. What are the sectors we need to work on in our community? What are the actions that the city can take indirectly to affect those emissions in our city? So super excited to have a team. We were scheduled to meet January 6th. And of course, that was the day of the violence at the Capitol, which happened right as the meeting was supposed to start. But it was also the day there was a regional Wi-Fi outage. So pretty much everyone on my leadership team started texting me and calling me and saying, I can't get online. So we ended up having to reschedule it. So our first meeting is actually on Monday. Very exciting start to next week. In terms of sort of the capacity and resources, we do have a resident commission focused on energy. 3 of the 4 sort of bullets or tasks for them were really about helping advise the city on internal greenhouse gas reduction goals. But there's also this 4th bullet, promote community best practices and strategies. So as much as the city needs advice and help and residential voices to do our own work in-house with the municipality, we also need to be working with the community. So I'm trying to sort of gear that team to be like, okay, what are the things you want to advise the city on? But let's start working more on the community conversation about where we need to go for energy. So this team is an asset that we can work with. And recently they've advised us to adopt more stringent sustainable building standards within the city. So we're pursuing that as an action right away. This slide is sort of a hodgepodge of logos and resources and people who all have influence in our community. I know I'm leaving out a ton of people, but just bear with me. The city is this hierarchical organization, right? We're designed to keep things moving steady, keep them going, structure, routine, executing tasks and actions and services for the community. So they're very focused on what we're doing already. But we also, I need to plug into this more adaptive network in our area. Folks who are more able to cross boundaries, be dynamic, that value sort of applied learning and pilot projects, who are nimble. So things like businesses or NGOs, community-based organizations, university groups, and residents. And the Duluth City residents are not waiting for the city to take community-wide climate action. They are just getting together and making their own plan for what our community needs to do, which is amazing. So some of the work that I think that Summer is headed to do with the advisory boards and the surveys. Some of that work through a powerful Duluth Climate and Energy Network has been done for the city. They've come together as residents. They said, this is our plan for climate action. And in that, they've identified things that the city can do as well. Of course, the city staff, we need to have our actions. We need to respond to the citizens' climate action plan and work on our things. But it's really forward thinking for these residents to get together and create that. It's basically a focus group that can inform the work of our city sustainability advisory team. So I can't say it enough that we need these adaptive networks, and they are so important. My position is supposed to be a liaison to the community and this community work. I've been giving talks and meeting with people for a year, pretty much straight. And so I've been trying to make these connections and start these relationships, but there's a long way to go with this. And we need to find that that table like Summer has, where you can get folks to sit down from these different sectors and start working the problem. So there's a lot of work to do, but super grateful to have all these resources in the Duluth area. So one just small example to end with is the Rocky Mountain Institute Solarize campaign. Through joining that, we learned about the solar bulk buy campaign, which our office has been trying to promote. But it's just one example of showing that, you know, there's not one sector or department that can do this work. This is a great showing of a partnership of several different organizations working together to help bring down the cost of solar for residents. And through it, I've met people at One Roof. We've talked about finance mechanisms. You know, there's folks on staff at Minnesota Interfaith Power and Light that have been long-term solar resources for informing my work both at UMD and now at the city. So there's great people out there to work with, and there's no shortage of them. So I definitely tend to tap our adaptive networks. Okay, I'm going to skip a few slides because probably no one in this group needs to be convinced that climate change is real or that there's data that shows it's already changed. But the focus of a climate action plan and what I hope to get the city to work on together across departments is what are the actions we can take to mitigate climate change. Like Summer said, anything we do in the next 10 years is really helpful to slow climate change, but also we need to start adapting and preparing ourselves for what's coming. So hopefully we can do both in this climate action plan. And you know, usually you start with background on what the potential impacts are. You do a vulnerability assessment, which has already been done for Duluth. You kind of inventory your greenhouse gas emissions, which we have sort of, but we're working to update. And then you list your goals. Well, we have a goal for the city already, 80% reduction by 2050. And then you start working on emission reduction strategies, adaptation strategies, and get an implementation plan together. So kind of on the second row at the bottom here, like striving towards this implementation program. A climate action plan that I would like to create is not something that's like, well, in the next, what we're going to do in 2045 is this. I want to know what are the things we can do in the next 5 or 6 years to get us on the right trajectory to be able to make, to adapt, be resilient, and then also reduce our impacts for future climate change. And there's lots of guiding documents that we can use. I mentioned a few of them before: Duluth Citizens Climate Action Plan, our vulnerability study, this multi-hazard mitigation plan for the city that lists climate change as a threat. And then the fact that our public health in Duluth, there are disparities between neighborhoods. And how does equity play into this? And how does equity really play into all of our strategies? I don't know exactly what will come out of our climate action work plan, but I expect to see things like this, very similar to Summer's list as well. And the nice thing about all of these actions is, sure, they're great for climate action, but they also have a lot of co-benefits. And so emphasizing those wherever we can will be important. Recently read this book, just to end my little talk here, called All We Can Save. And it's just female writers who've been working on climate action and climate adaptation. And they all wrote essays about their jobs. And I found it so inspiring. So if you haven't read this book, go get it. But something that this writer, Christine Nieves Rodriguez, said it was, when disaster happens, the person right in front of you is your best chance at survival. And that's when you understand the times we're facing are going to require us to recognize the most important thing around us is community. This hit me really hard because I think of climate action as, what do we do for infrastructure? How do we change our energy sources? But working on community is also going to be a strategy. Community, neighborhood strength, resiliency, that needs to be one of our strategies too. And especially in neighborhoods with higher economic stress, with limited transportation, people with disabilities, older adults, and people who have been traditionally underserved. So how do we integrate that with all of our work is sort of the big thing that we need to be thinking about. So that's what's on my mind. Thank you for letting me share. Summer, you and I should probably have a session of our own just to talk through, how'd you do that? How'd you do that? Because that would be really fun for me. Because I feel a little bit alone. There aren't a lot of people doing this work in our area. So maybe we could arrange that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mindy. Thank you both. This is so helpful. Yeah, the chat is sort of alive with suggestions as well for both of you, which is exciting. So we are hoping to go to like 3:50, 3:55-ish today. So we've got 10 to 15 minutes. And I would love to get into some questions here, but I also, as like part of the reason we're doing this is for people to recognize each other's faces and what they're doing in different hubs too. So I was wondering if I just said your names really quick and you can be ready to unmute and tell us your name, what hub you're affiliated with, and like your job title, something just super brief, super brief. So we know Mindy, we know Summer, you know me. Jacob, you're next.
All right. My name is Jacob Porter, and I am the Climate Adaptation Coordinator with EarthCare Thunder Bay, City of Thunder Bay. And should
Awesome.
you nominating the next person, or are you going to?
I'll just do it. I'll go faster. Erica.
Hi, everyone. My name is Erica Vai, and I'm a geosciences research scientist at the Great Lakes Research Center at Michigan Tech in Houghton.
David.
David Abaz with Regional Sustainable Development Partnerships out of Duluth. And I live and grow food off the grid.
Randy. You're muted.
No, my name is Randy Hansen, and I am at Lake Superior College and am one of the coordinators of the Duluth Hub, and have been involved in regional food systems development for the last 15 years or so. And yeah, and have known Mindy for many years in working with her for a decade at UMD.
Awesome. Courtney.
I'm Courtney Strutt. Many different hats, but I work with Charles and Lindsay at the university. I'm a graduate student, and I also am affiliated with EarthCare. I'm the chair of the Climate Adaptation Working Group, which is what brought me here today.
Lindsay.
Hi, everyone. I'm a professor at Health Sciences at Lakehead. I do a lot of work around climate change, engagement, and action. And that's it. And this is Owen. He loves to look at himself. That's why I often put the video on for him to see. Whoops.
Awesome. Julie, if you're easily able to unmute there.
Hi, Julie Allen with the Lake Superior Sustainable Farming Association, and my baby Amariah.
Awesome. Thank you. Joseph.
Hello, friends. I'm Joseph Bauer-Kemper from Duluth. I work at UMD in the Department of American Indian Studies.
Thanks. Charles.
Hi, Charles Levko, up here in Thunder Bay, North Lake Superior. And I'm a professor in Department of Health Sciences. My research is focused on equitable, sustainable food systems.
Thank you. Brian.
I'm at Lakehead University as well in the Faculty of Natural Resources Management.
And Naren.
Hi everyone, I'm Naren. I'm at Boating here in Sault Ste. Marie at Algoma University, and I'm a faculty member focused on geography and land stewardship and food.
Awesome. Okay, so I did want to pop back to some questions that we saw in the chat. We answered them about Summer's role being paid. Randy asked if there are other cities in Canada that you are modeling strategies after or could model strategies in progress after.
Yeah, so the Municipal Energy Plan program is the program itself that's funded by the province of Ontario has supported these types of plans across the whole province. And so we have been looking at Sudbury, Ontario's plan very closely because Sudbury has a very similar kind of community makeup, high industry. We've also used the Sault Ste. Marie plan as reference as well. Thankfully, we don't have to tackle quite as much industry emissions when it comes to the Sioux, but we are really lucky that this type of planning exercise, we're not the first ones, and we're building on a lot of really great work that's been done across the province and the country.
Can I ask how you compiled so much amazing data in such a short time?
So with our funding, we were able to hire a consulting firm. So Sustainability Solutions Group, they are a very well-known consulting firm that has worked on plans like this across the country. And they are also very prevalent in Europe right now too, working on all their ambitious targets. So they really supported us through the process. Data collection, it took a lot of time. So it started September 2019, and I think we wrapped up our final kind of pieces in May 2020. But it's been very helpful to have consultants, and I know that we're very lucky.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so following up on that, Summer, there's a question here about why divert organic solid waste to an anaerobic digester instead of composting it aerobically, and then questions about methane versus CO2.
So with anaerobic digestion, we can combine it with gas capture, and then you create our own renewable natural gas for the community. So our landfill is already equipped with I don't know the exact number of wells, but right now we don't have an anaerobic digester at our landfill, just wells that capture the gas, but all the infrastructure is there and it's used to power homes in Thunder Bay. And we're looking to see how we can expand that. So right now our wastewater treatment plant also uses anaerobic digestion, but they do the flare-offs and convert that methane to CO2.
Great, thank you. I think the questions that were in the chat have been answered either in the chat or here. So I'm just going to open it up to discussion if anyone wants to unmute and ask, Mindy or Summer.
I have a question for Mindy. So Mindy, you've had such great experience in the science world before UMD, and then sort of with, I guess you could call citizen or student action and education before you came to the city. What's been the biggest sort of surprise and challenge that you've found? I mean, besides COVID, probably.
Sure. I guess it's just the lack of capacity and the feeling that there was a lot that people want to do, and then there's never time to get to it because they're just tunneling, through the work that they have to do that's required. And so when Summer said, hiring a consultant, like I feel like external resources is something we're going to have to bring in just to do some of that lift. I think the city sustainability advisory team could be the group where we hire a facilitator to come in and help us come up with these solutions and figure out like who's doing what. The siloing that I thought was so terrible at the university, like no one could be worse than the university when it comes to siloing, right? But it's way worse in city government, like way worse, I feel. So breaking down silos is a barrier. I'm trying to do that. I think I need external resources to get it done because I'm not going to get a salary line to have an adaptation coordinator. Although if I do, come and knock it on Jacob's door. Just kidding. But I would love to have somebody just to focus on adaptation. There's great ideas for projects. One is, Duluth has this huge brownfield site called US Steel. It's a perfect place to put large scale community solar. There's all these hoops to jump through to get it to a place where you could ever develop it, but no one's really assigned to it. I could probably spend 5 full-time years working on that to get that done, but I can't. I have to do communications and outreach, and I have to, you know, respond to media requests, and then I have to do my greenhouse gas accounting, and then I have to, you know, get my climate action plan. So there's projects, but there's not people and resources to put them on.
It sounds
Would
like
love to have a neighborhood resiliency coordinator, somebody to just be doing community-led research and bringing in what do neighborhoods really need? What should the city be providing? We know where vulnerable people live in the city. What are the things that we could do to make their neighborhoods better? And that might intersect between green infrastructure, stormwater, tree planting, beautification, you know, housing stock upgrades. Like, so yeah, there's incredible workload. The siloing and just lack of capacity have been shocking.
It sounds like the Biden administration is going to free up a huge amount of climate-related resources, money that can be accessed by a city like Duluth. Have you guys, I'm
that
sure
would be
you're thinking and
wonderful.
working.
I'm tracking it, watching it very closely. We're part of Climate Mayors Group nationally, so we get updates on that. The problem is, I've heard that will come through existing funding sources. Who's the person that's going to spend the time to write the grant, administer the grant, and do the work? If we don't have capacity, we will be locked out of all of that stuff. I don't know what the answer is yet, but I want to solve that. And I don't know if it's partnerships, if this adaptation network that we have, if, you know, some relationship in the community can help. But sure, cities will have access to funding, but can we apply, manage, implement? I'm worried.
Charles, go ahead. I see your hand up.
Yeah, I want to ask a question that could be a much bigger conversation, but I'm just interested in maybe for Mindy and Summer, just your initial thoughts on it. You know, recognizing, as you know, you both kind of said directly and indirectly, that like this issue is not one that we like. It is. We are in a time of crisis at some level. I mean, this is a big issue, and you know, cities are notorious for kind of moving far too slow. Mindy, you've just articulated a lot of the, like some of the reasons for that. But I wonder, like, you know, recognizing the nature of the Lake Superior Living Labs network, that we're kind of trying to bring together, you know, like municipalities, communities, indigenous nations, tribal authorities, you know, academics, civil society. Like, what do you see in your positions? Like, what do you see as a way that some of like we could, like a group like this, or a group like a diversity of folks from different sectors could contribute, could support this, either whether that's pushing it farther, pushing it harder, or you know, even helping with some of those capacity issues? Like, and you both have been on multiple different, you're coming not just from cities, so I'm also interested in your perspective of where you see, you know, diverse people from different places contributing.
Yeah, and so for our kind of certain situation with the, you know, the community energy and emissions plan, one of the biggest things is the networking and the kind of discussion around energy literacy. So moving beyond, like, climate education is extremely important, and that's going to play a huge role, but moving from, you know, framing and putting education initiatives that are really focused on climate change to, when we think about greenhouse gas reduction, transitioning to energy literacy and being able to have a broad enough reach in the community so that we can start reaching the hearts then minds of the community, as so many science communicators like to say, because a lot of the issue is that even in our stakeholder committee, who it's a group of people who are extremely passionate about climate change and climate change solutions, there's still there's a disconnect between, you know, the energy that we use and how the two relate. And so that's something that I think we really need to put our heads together at EarthCare and think about, how are we going to raise awareness in the community and start to integrate this into our regular communications? Because as Mindy was saying, it's the capacity issue one thing is with EarthCare is we're very lucky to have working groups and all of these different networks, but that also takes a lot of, you know, time kind of management, all of the different action items, who's responsible for that. And so at a certain level, that on the ground work that I don't necessarily, you know, have a lot of capacity for, that's what would be very helpful. And also, you know, support from city council and hearing from the community and mobilizing the community is what would be kind of the what I think would be very impactful.
I agree with all of that. The fact that Duluth Climate and Energy Network got together and created a citizen-led climate action plan is pretty amazing. Some of that work I think takes place already. The fact that we have Sea Grant and, you know, colleges and universities and tribal colleges all working on literacy and outreach around these issues, absolutely wonderful. I think, you know, once in a while, just getting support from individuals, residents that say, hey, I'm glad my city's working on this. I don't think, you know, our leadership, our city council, our mayor, I don't think they get emails that say, hey, thanks for working on this. Like, they don't get those types of emails. One of those once in a while would be really welcome. But more than that, I think it's that cross-sector collaboration that it's like we need the business community to say, yep, we have to address this. We need to do this. And get just beyond the choir of the same people that are always talking about climate change. Like, this is all of us. This is all of our work. When my public works director will say, yeah, the increase in freeze blast cycles is killing us. This is hurting our infrastructure. If he was able to say that and have data to back that up, that could be super powerful. It's where the message is coming from that I think people need to hear it from multiple sectors and over and over and over again, so that it's not just like, well, it's just the activist community that cares about this. No, we should all care about this. This is our community. MnDOT should care about this. Our, you know, infrastructure people should care about this. Realtors should care about this. Yeah, so I think that you kind of covered that, Summer.
Yeah, thanks. Mindy, real quick, what's the support like within city councilors for climate action in Duluth?
I don't think I can speak to them or their opinion because like I'm still pretty new. I don't know everybody real well, but when councilors have come to me to ask me, what do you think about this climate resolution? How should we work on this? What are you trying to do and how could this help you? The fact that they're asking those questions to me shows that they do support action and they're trying to think about what are the ways we do this, because a council resolution won't free up a bunch of resources for Mindy to hire a climate adaptation person or a neighborhood resiliency person or to hire a consultant to make our sector graphs that we need. So we need the wedge diagram, right? Everybody's got to have their wedge diagram. A resolution doesn't open those resources up. So I think they're trying to approach that practically and reaching out to me. So that shows that there's some interest, but I certainly can't speak to whether they support one thing or another. They speak for themselves.
Yes, yeah. Well, thanks so much. And I realize we're a little past our time here and you might have a meeting in 2 minutes. So thank you everybody for coming. Big round of applause to Mindy and Summer for sharing with us. And we hope to see you. Our next session will be with Julie and Randy and who were here, and David, looking a little bit more at an egg focus on February 23rd. So thanks so much and have a great weekend.
Thank you. Thanks everyone.
Thanks both. Thanks everyone.